So earlier, Jason introduced a few of our task force members and board members. On my right, Catherine First, our board treasurer, but I've asked her to be part of this because, of course, she has a wealth of knowledge from a financial perspective. Pete Larson is a member of the task force. Randy Vetch, operations director at Eagle Ridge Academy. Manisha, so sorry, Manisha. But also Kate Williams, who's a parent representative, is on our task force. Amanda Widener, who couldn't be here tonight. April Grabansky is a teacher who's also on the task force. Am I leaving anyone out? Thank you. Karen, Jim, and Jerry. Thank you.
Diane.
Okay. Oh, yes, thank you, Diane. And members of the affiliated building corporation are also members of the task force as well. So, so Erica, you've gone around and
Well, kind of. I think
okay.
people are still writing, but I can start with the first question. The first question I have for the panel tonight is, what happens if we do not get the grant? Was that your question? Oh.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, I would be happy.
And I'll say from a treasurer standpoint, the grant is $225,000 a year over the course of 3 years. As Jason said, we currently have a fund balance of over $1 million in the bank. I think the grant is one consideration for this. I think we're in a position that we could consider expansion even without that grant. The grant will leave us in a better financial position long term. But that is not a showstopper if we do not get the grant. There are still valid reasons to grow. There's valid reasons that growth supports our strategic plan, and we can still make that happen.
I'd like to interject something too, something that I think is very important. Idea of a fund balance is something that was a little bit perplexing to me as a parent representative on the board, but regardless, I think just the idea of what does fund balance mean? And I didn't have my aha moment until about a year into my board service, when it came time to realize that it's our ability to pay our bills. When we say we have $1 million in the bank, that sounds like a great deal of money. When you think about what it takes to operate the school and pay our bills and keep our doors open, that's about 2.5 months.
12 weeks, yeah.
So when I think about it in that context, could you pay your bills with 2.5 months of income? Or only 2.5 months of income? So I want to put the perspective of having that fund balance be at the point where it's at, and how increasing it to that 20-25% goal is something that we're trying to achieve.
And I would add that if you look at the criteria for getting the grant, and after you saw Jason's presentation about our performance, I can't see how we could not get the grant. Because they want this kind of success to be replicated and repeated. That's the whole goal.
Also, just to add to it, it's not like every school has had the opportunity to apply. Certain schools of certain level have been kind of given the option to apply for that grant.
Is there one single grant exists, so it'll be awarded to one school, or are there multiple grants available?
There's multiple grants available, so everyone that has, great question, everyone that has applied, there's enough money to give it to everyone that has applied. So it's not a competitive grant. It's competitive against a set of standards.
And that criteria has been evaluated and reviewed prior to our submission. So we have had multiple eyes looking on the application to ensure we achieve the criteria expected.
Question 2. Many times during the presentation, Jason, you referred to the concept of we. Does this we talk exclusively about the task force, or were the survey results of the community used to set the priorities of expansion?
Okay, so the survey results were specific, most commonly used for the location, what was it, what we call that? The location guidelines. That's where that information came from. That was the main purpose of that survey. So when we say we, I was talking about either the board or the SGTF, or probably sometimes both.
And then to follow that up, are the results of the survey that was given available online?
We'll have to double
We
check.
can
They
do
were
that.
part of our materials for one of our task force meetings.
Yeah.
So if they're.
The narrative, a narrative is available online. The raw data is not. But a narrative and the summary of each is online, and I will double check that.
And if any member, or if we're not addressing the context of the question, feel free to give us some more clarity. Brittany, yes.
That was my question.
That's okay.
So I didn't.
I had a feeling. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't realize the primary purpose of the survey was just about location. Because I'm doing it, Jason, we were starting and talking about, what we would really love is one more K-12 school merged. I thought, oh, I don't know if I've heard of that we, and it seems like those first three priorities actually be something that we're
That was, and I think that you'll see that in the survey is really when you have students that choose different locations. It was the ease and the parents. That was one of the pieces.
okay. And so that.
Is to have one site, or I should say, the proximity of the sites was very, very important.
Right, but not necessarily, I thought we had an exchange about what would be in that site. Another elementary, are we gonna separate elementary or upper and lower schools, or, I just didn't realize that, I don't know that that's what decided, that's a really important decision. Are we going to stay K through 12, or are we going to go separate lower, upper, as the strategic task force decided that? So what is that?
Just to clarify too, that the task force won't make any decisions unilaterally. It's serving at the pleasure of the board. So oftentimes, I think the "we" is used in, depending on the answer. It could be, at the pleasure of the board, we, cumulative we. So,
Just to interject more to answer your question, sure, we have not made decisions in terms of how we are going to split the schools. It's going to be based on what we get as a facility. Because the challenge is that if we are not able to sell this building, and we don't, because there are penalties for, getting out of this building. So it's not without, it's not a decision that we can just make lightly. We have to look at what do we find in the facility. Are we able to get 160,000 square feet? Are we able to get out of the school? Those are the things that are going to be the main drivers of making those decisions.
But that seems opposite than having a vision, and that seems more like.
And we can get that, look at that survey, but some of the things was that proximity, okay? Being able to share those resources, the special education team. And another one that came across strong was that is the mentor of the older kids going down to the younger kids with the TA things. And that's where that thought and that vision came from.
It just seemed last spring when we had those round table
Right.
discussions, it became very clear to me that people came with two different ideas. Some people came thinking, we're gonna have another K through 12, that's K through 1, and other people came thinking, we're looking at a lower school and upper school, because there are different needs, maybe different facilities can better meet those needs. I think that's a really important discussion. I just think there's a lot of confusion still about.
There is, yeah. This is real high level
Right.
discussion. I mean, we don't know. Going back to what Anisha said, we don't know exactly what are the facilities available. That's
But are we
So
gonna let the
unfortunately-
availability of facilities drive that decision?
a little bit, like we were just talking about, a little bit.
Yeah, I think the word drive is too strong.
Yeah.
I think it's input. It's one more significant piece of input.
It's like if you're going to buy a new house, you put together, sit down with your spouse, and come up with a list of criteria that you want to use to find that new house. And you're going to look at dozens of houses, and you're going to weigh each one of those against that criteria and go, you know what, it doesn't have this, but it does have this. And those are two of our top things. And then you have to balance those two. That's when the input comes in and say, well, what does really matter more? And you make a decision based off that. Like Jay said, I don't know if you can find exactly one thing, say, here's what we want to do, and then go find it.
But don't you ideally have your preferred outcome?
Yeah,
That you're looking
we-
based on that.
No,
Yep.
So,
our preferred would be a location that houses the 20 acres, one site, K-12, might be multiple buildings in one site, across the street.
and
or-
that was based on community input, that decision?
I wouldn't say it's a decision. I think the board would understand and appreciate that there's a desire to have the one location for a myriad of reasons. You know, including availability of staff and resource use, you know, having one lunchroom versus separate food service opportunities. But that would be our, like, the epitome, that would be the great thing to have. And, you know, secondarily, there would be different options potentially.
And let me
Does that
just
answer your
clarify.
question?
And the other thing, one of the things that I've heard at least is too, a lot of concern about, you know, I don't want my kindergartners to get run over by the high school kids or things like that when you talk about one building. I think, keep in mind when we talk about one facility or one site, as Ann said, it could be different buildings, side by side or across the street. And so, be careful, it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, our upper school kids are gonna run rampant over the lower school. It could mean that they're side by side, it could mean that they're two wings in the same building. Those are a lot of the things when we look at facilities, we have to start thinking about it. Those are kind of things, like as Pete said, we have to weigh, right?
Any more questions, I guess, because I've had a few in here, regarding the structure of the units of school? There were 3 different questions, I think, posed about, is it going to be K-12, is it going to be 2 K-5s? Is there any other questions that would like to be posed at this time about that topic? Otherwise, I'm taking those out of my file. What are some of the offerings that will be available to students if we grow?
Well, I think academic, I think you'd probably be the best one to answer that.
I would be happy to answer that. No, some of the wonderful opportunities that our kids would be offered is really, I think, being able to offer all of the things we're offering now, but we're offering them on maybe rotating years. Or, so some of the things is like we offer anatomy and physiology every other year. We offer AP chemistry for the first time this year, and that'll be every other year. We offer AP physics every other year. We offer AP biology every other year. We'll be looking at expanding more high-level math offerings. Those art classes that we currently offer, if we can't fill them, we cut them. And so if this would be the opportunity to fulfill all those art classes, I think Erica Higgins would love to have a full 9/12 orchestra, a full 9/12 band, some of those pieces.
Theater. The list is from an offering standpoint too. I mean, I think of things like the ability to have a gymnasium or 2 gymnasiums, full service kitchen. These aren't academic offerings per se, but they're things that directly impact the student and staff experience throughout their day.
The other course offerings, I mean, it leaves our staff open to start offering some of the electives that, for example, I'll just tell you, we approved the course offering of American Government this past year, and I think it fits perfectly with the mission and vision of our school. The problem is we are running out of space to offer some of these even classes in the building we're at. So we may have to, I don't know how many more electives I can even approve to offer, even when they perfectly kind of fit that mission and vision. Language is an area that we would probably look at expanding as well, because right now we have a very small Spanish class, you know, only 2 levels of it. Would that go higher? Would we offer a 3rd language? I don't know. So I think the course offerings could be unlimited to the point that they are supporting the mission and vision of our school. So.
So with the courses, it sounds like mostly 9/12, would that be an immediate offering, or would it like take a while for those
As
students
they
to
come
catch
up, but as they make that vertical progression.
So is there a threshold of students like going into 9th that you would need to?
Generally 3 sections, which we're really close to having that. So 3 full sections, 75 students. You start to see a lot more flexibility in scheduling.
And facilities to support those options.
Would there be any immediate benefits for our lower school students, our current lower school students at this time? I mean, all of those things are upper school.
You know, I would say some of it's tailor making the facility to fit lower school students, because you have the space to be able to do that. Like, we could do minimal pieces down there to make things better for our kindergarten and 1st grade teachers. It's the space, You know, we want the larger areas, we want places where there are windows in a room, we want, you know, where we can have that activity, and not have to share all of the spaces. Some of that scheduling too, like what are better scheduling options for our lower school students, because we're not sharing a space with the upper school, we're not sharing a teacher with the upper school, because we don't need to do that anymore. We can have a dedicated, you know, the Latin teacher won't be teaching 6th grade likely anymore, so we have more options and those types of things. The other piece would be activities. You know, we have more room to be able to hold activities and more people who would be willing to sponsor those activities, because we have more staff members. So as you get more people, you can do more offerings and things like that for our lower school students too.
I think the other piece that we need to just remember within that, classical education itself is extremely structured. And through 8th grade or through the School of Logic, it's meant to be a fairly tailored schooling, to have a strong liberal arts background. And, you know, when I say that, just a strong variety, so all kids have that base level, so that when they go into the upper levels, they're prepared. So, like speaking to my middle school, they wouldn't have a lot of changes, I would necessarily say, in their curriculum. Though their spaces, like Melanie's saying, they may have my 7th grade choir right now has to shift between 2 rooms. They get to sing sometimes in the elementary school room, sometimes they are in a classroom trying to sing. So I think of some of those things that it would just fit better for the students to be able to have the appropriate space. A gym for the lower school kids to be able to play games or do their physical activity. So that is that question. How does expanding benefit ERA, and how does it support ERA's mission?
Well, I think a lot of the things we talked about benefit. I mean, we just named the major ones. The first 3 that I talked about before is one, offering more academic opportunities, offering more extracurricular opportunities, and offering more classical education to more students. We have a long waiting list, and that's something important. We understand that sometimes that's difficult for current families, but as the board is thinking in the future, that's something that, you know, we really feel strongly about. So when we talk about supporting mission, by bringing the mission to more families, I think that supports the mission. And this board took that strategic plan, which is aligned to the mission, and went through bullet by bullet and did that. And you know, that's what they used to make their determination.
And right now, growth's occurring, whether we build another to expand or not. We're forced with some situations coming up in the next couple of years. If we don't expand, we're going to have to turning students away. We don't have space. We're running into situations where we're having problems where we have 860 kids. Next year, you know, when is it going to be 880? Where are we going to get to a point where we don't have space in this facility if we don't expand?
So not only are we turning away students on the wait list, it impacts our current population. So we've got to do something at some point.
And especially when, I think it was okay when you had only 6 to 12 kids, you have kids who are coming going to the lower school. And they may not be, we don't see addition. So those kids, if they all decided to stay within the ridge in upper school, we will have space limitations. How will we accommodate all those kids to continue to stay? So that's another challenge.
I think another aspect is the fact that we have to be comfortable with the fact that while we're trying to improve things and make it better for our current students, our goal is also for the students who are not yet here. I'm comfortable with the fact my youngest is in 8th grade right now, and she may not see any benefit hardly at all from this expansion. A lot of it when it kicked in there. But I know that there are kids coming behind her grade-wise. I know that there are also kids who are already coming to the school who are going to benefit from what we're doing, what I think is offering them. That's the altruistic part of who we are, reaching out and seeing this great product we have and want to share with them.
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned the wait list a number of times. Do you have percentage, do you have numbers on what percentage of that wait list? I'm assuming most of it are younger children. They're waiting to get to the lower school, is that correct?
Correct. So it is. Now, we do have a wait list up to 8th grade, correct? So that wait list is moving up vertically every year. I don't have the exact numbers, but if you go online and look up our 2013, 2014 annual report, you'll see the exact number by grade. But your assumption's right. Mostly it's kindergarten, then it's kind of sporadic all the way until 8th grade. We don't have a wait list for 9th and above.
Did kind of a follow-on question, and I didn't get a good look at that matrix that you had up there earlier, but have you factored in attrition going into the upper school?
No.
And on that note, actually, the attrition factors that have been used, we're seeing that they've already changed since spring insofar as from a statistical standpoint. I mean, using attrition over the past few years, but we're seeing our attrition shrink dramatically year over year. And so that goes to that whole, even the numbers on that chart, which this presentation will be online, you will see that it doesn't even match today's numbers.
So, for example, going from 8th to 9th grade, historically it's been between 12 and 18% in 9th grade, that attrition. Now we're at about 7%. Okay? So the data we have from the past, we're retaining more.
What we're doing, we're seeing the effect of bringing those kids into Cambridge sooner. We have them, attach your identity, and they're less likely.
Kind of a question to play on that, I think this one fits right in, is what is the plan to accommodate students next year? For example, we are at approximately 865 students. Has the Strategic Growth Task Force or the board looked at closing enrollment in the upper school for next year to accommodate the number of students? Because if we see retention like we've seen this year, we're talking another 10 to 15 students probably next year in 9-12.
Yeah.
And we're already having facility issues. So has there been any discussion on closed enrollment for the 15-16 year?
So that's going to have to be addressed, right? So generally what we've done in the past is we over-enroll for some grades. Because we've known from the past, students are going to leave. So we're going to have to change our over-enrollment, especially for 9th grade. All right? So that number will change. Like this year, we enrolled about 90 students. And now we have about 70 students actually come day one, things like that. So we'll have to watch that over-enrollment. We'll have to watch that 9th grade, how many go to 10th. Because there's about 18, if 70, then we have 70 9th graders. So 65 of them go to 10th grade. It's an automatic another section. So we'll have to cut enrollment and say 10th grade, we can't have more than 55. Hopefully 10 leave. Do you know what I mean? And so we'll have to limit enrollment until we see those numbers leave. So yes, but we do not have to limit. Does that answer the question?
That's all of them. Any other questions? Can I open it up for any other questions this evening? Otherwise, that
And we will be here too. We're going to hang out here too if you want to ask privately and more. Anything for the group that would benefit the group?
Otherwise, this is Jason Lansky, the facilitator. Thank you so much for coming this evening.